Good afternoon, all of you. Welcome to our next session. So, we have our next speaker, Mr. Krishna Chaitanya T, with us. Welcome, Mr. Krishna. So,
Thank you,
first,
sir.
I will introduce Mr. Krishna. Mr. Krishna Chaitanya is employed with the Edgate Technology Private Limited as an embedded system engineer. He has a more than 4 years professional experience. He holds a Bachelor of Engineering degree from SCT Institute of Technology, Bangalore, Karnataka, in the Electronics and Communication Engineering. He is very passionate about learning and knowledge sharing. His working area includes digital signal processing, robotics, mixed signal processing, especially MS430, ARM Cortex M4, IoT, and analog system. He has trained over 2,000 students and faculty members. He recently conducted the training program and workshop in the several universities around the country. So I request Mr. Krishna, so please go through the hands-on session. Welcome back.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. So we'll just start with the IoT sessions. I hope you're all clear with the embedded systems, and we just saw a basic demonstration on embedded system too, right? Now, what we'll do is we just have a introduction to Internet of Things. So we'll understand why is Internet of Things, how is the Internet of Things, how did it evolve, and what is the need of it, everything. So once after that, we'll also go to extracting some resource which is required for IoT applications. So we'll just introduce those things while the theory part is happening. And once after that, we'll have a small demonstration on how a particular object can be made an IoT and how can we control that particular object using a software and a mobile app. Okay, so we'll just start with the introduction first. So give me a minute. I'll just share the screen. Yes, so please let me know if the screen is viewed in a full screen.
So not in the full screen.
Yeah, I'm not given a slide share. I think it's now full.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll understand what is IoT first. Okay, so when I say it is an Internet of Things, that means anything in this world can be made an IoT enabled device. For example, I can make a water bottle as an IoT. I can make a even your pen, pencils, everything can be made an IoT. And one thing required is, okay. Before that, let me ask you a question. Okay, you just know what is an embedded system, right? Your mobile phone is an embedded system, and let's say washing machine. All these are of embedded systems. Okay, so why is that you're not able to do calls in washing machines or other devices, but why are you able to do it only in mobile phones? Any idea? Any specific thing that is differentiating between mobile phones, laptops, and other embedded systems like refrigerators, air conditioners, all these? Why are you not able to do calls using those embedded systems? Yes, any idea? Anyone? Okay, all right. So, a keyword that can help you out in getting the answer is, so you have networks here. Okay, yeah, to do calls you need a network. For example, you have Airtel, Geo, Vodafone, and so on, right? These are all the networks that is required to make calls. Now, if you want a network that should be connected to your mobile phone or laptop, whatever it is, first thing you need to have here is an IP address. Okay, just check in your mobile phones. If you go to settings and go to your phone information or about phones information, so you will have an IP address assigned to your mobile phone. That means every mobile phone will have their IP addresses using which networks can be connected. either Airtel, Jio, or Vodafone, or any other networks that you want to connect to a particular device, first make sure that the device is provided with an IP address. Okay, so once an IP address is provided to an device, you can enable network to that particular device simultaneously. As a network is provided, obviously I think you will be able to provide an internet network. Okay, internet network is nothing but internet. So how is internet of things actually being processed? So internet of things, let's say I want to communicate with one device to device another device through internet. So that is, I just gave an example for of water bottle, right? How can I communicate with water bottle is, let's say I just want to monitor the water level present in that water bottle each 5-10 minutes or 15 minutes once or half an hour once. Okay, so my mobile phone will request some data to the water bottle, and water bottle gives me some data. I mean, the water level status of the water level each 15 minutes or half an hour, something like that. Okay, so that means there is data exchange happening between the mobile phone and the water bottle, correct? Okay, so there is some data exchange happening. So through what media? Is it physically or virtually? So yeah. So when I say it is Internet of Things, it will be virtual. And in case of virtual, there are different media in that also. You have Bluetooth application and Wi-Fi application and many things, right? So Wi-Fi is one of the application of internet. Okay, so through internet, two devices can be communicated with each other. So this mobile phone and your water bottle can be communicated through internet. Give me a second, please. Just a minute. Let me just. Yeah, right. So I was just telling you about the data exchange. So the data exchange between these two devices is happening exchange between two. How are these being transmitted, or you need some memory where the data will be stored, and from the particular memory the other device can retrieve the data or read the data, correct? So how is this happening is, okay, when two devices are being able to communicate with each other through internet, that means the distance doesn't matter. That means the two devices distance doesn't matter. So one device can be kept in one end of the earth, and other end of the world, the other device can be kept where it can be communicated, because internet, through internet you will be able to communicate with any person in this world, right? You can you may not be able to call directly, but through WhatsApp, through internet or Skype or whatever media that you have for conversation, through which you can easily be communicated with the other, some other countries, the person whoever you want to talk to, correct? So here what happens is, same way the data communication between these two devices happens through internet, so the distance doesn't matter. All right. And yes, I was talking about where the data has to be stored in this case of thing. Okay, so you have something called IoT cloud. So IoT cloud is nothing but a virtual memory space. It is not a physical memory space. It is a virtual memory space where data that is transmitted and received between both the devices are being stored. Okay, if the data is communicated or exchanged between these two devices, that is because of this IoT cloud, where it is a memory space, virtual memory space, where the particular data or respective data has been stored for temporary use. Okay. Now, we'll just brief out and see few applications of IoT also. So as I told you, we'll just brief out an introduction of IoT, like definition for it. An IoT things, Internet of Things, IoT can be any device with any kind of built-in sensors. So how do you why specifically mentioning built-in sensors? So I just gave an example of water bottle, right? How do you calculate the water level in that water bottle? Through one of the analog sensor. So one of the analog sensor that can sense the water level of a particular container is, that is through water level sensor. So any application you may use, there will be one or the other sensors that will be able to collect the data and give you information, right? So I'm telling you, a device with any kind of built-in sensor with the ability to collect the transfer data. That means this water level sensor is giving me the data of how much level of water that is present in the container, right? So similarly, there are different applications which can provide different data to the other device which needs the particular data, correct? So a thing in an IoT can be any device with any kind of built-in sensor with the ability to collect the transfer data over a network without manual intervention. Okay, so without any human intervention, this data exchange can be possible. Okay, so IoT is a concept. There are different definitions. We'll just go through one by one. IoT is a concept that connects all the devices to the internet and let them communicate with each other over the internet. Okay, so I told you there are multiple devices that can be communicated with each other. Okay, that is device to device can be communicated through internet. That is what which I explained to in the beginning itself, right? So IoT is a chain network to connect devices. It is a chain network which can connect devices. That means within this world, any devices can be controlled through a particular mobile phone. Within using a single mobile phone, you can communicate multiple devices that are located in different areas in this world. Okay, so that is a power of IoT that you have. So that is why we call it as a chain network that can be connected with various devices, and then all devices can gather and share data about how they are used and environments in which they are operated. Okay, so environments that which are operated in the sense there are many sensors still. Here also we are talking about sensors still. That means sensors are mainly important in IoT application. Okay, so when we want to calculate some parameters of environment, let's say temperature, humidity, rain, all these, for all these you have sensors that can sense the temperature, sense the humidity of the environment, sense the atmospherical conditions, whatever it may be. Okay, so through which you can share data between devices. That is the third point of. And coming to the fourth point, the embedded technology in the object helps them to interact with internal states and external environment. So internal state and the external environment is, let's say I'll just take a small example of a smart street lights. Okay, these are all IoT street lights which can be controlled through internet, and apart from that it can also operate by its own. How can it operate is, so we don't need to go switch on the street lights and switch off the street lights. Okay, the now whatever the smart street lights we are talking about is, it senses the intensity of the environment. If the environment is brighter, then the light gets off automatically. Once the environment gets darker and darker, the intensity of the light, street light, also increases slowly. Okay, so it all depends upon the environmental external environmental condition and changes the internal states, that is LED's intensity. not LED, the street light. The street light's intensity is increased or decreased according to the brightness of the environment that you can see, right? Then let's take a small example which also depends upon sensors. Okay, so let's take two different examples, that is air conditioner and refrigerator. So both depends upon same temperature sensor. Okay, both depend upon the same temperature sensor. Let's say how individual objects depend upon temperature sensor. So let's say I have an temperature sensor located which can gather the which can take the environmental temperature sensor. Okay, and how this temperature sensor, room temperature how the room temperature is being dependent on two different embedded systems. Those are air conditioner and refrigerator. Air conditioner, once the room temperature is detected, according to that room temperature, AC gives the particular output. Let's say it is a summer and you have room temperature of 30 degree or above. Okay, and my air conditioner is programmed in such a way that it has to always maintain 25 degree to 22 degrees Celsius only. Okay, as you get the higher temperature, the air conditioner itself uh, decreases the temperature units into 5 to 6 units, so that it can maintain between 22 degree to 25 degrees Celsius. Correct. So as you get the room temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, so it should know that the values of the temperature sensor should be decreased to 25 to 22 degrees Celsius. Okay, and same way, let's suppose it is a winter season, I get temperature around 15 degree to 17 degrees Celsius. Okay, so at that time also you will prefer that increasing the temperature value to 22 or 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, within this range it has to be maintained. Okay, and this is how air conditioner works with that particular room temperature that the temperature sensor has provided, and the same readings is being provided to refrigerator. How this refrigerator is reacted to? So refrigerator also has different compartments of food, like freezing compartment, and compartment where you store your fruits and vegetables, and compartment where you provide liquid items, and different compartment where you provide food items, and so on, right? All these compartments will have different temperatures that should be maintained. Okay, that also will be maintained. Why? Because if the temperature is already cold, you no need to provide temperature for fruits or vegetables or these food items. So you can maintain it to neutral temperature, and only liquids and freezer compartments can be provided that particular temperature it should be provided. Okay, freezer compartments usually will be around -5 degree to +5 degrees Celsius, right? So if it is 15 degree or 17 degrees Celsius room temperature, then obviously you need to take care that it should be decreased to 5 at least 10 or 15 degrees Celsius. Correct. So that is how the freezer compartment is maintained with the room temperature. If already the room temperature is at 15 degrees Celsius, you need to make sure that only these many values should be decreased. Okay, so that is how room temperature is. Sorry, the refrigerator depends upon the room temperature. All right. Then I have few applications. There are classifications in applications too. Uh, a basic applications that you use where you use IoT is, first thing is your fit bands, smartwatches. These are all basic applications that IoT is in use. And when it comes to a little more bigger application, you have for home automation, where home appliances can be controlled through a single phone. That means if you want to open door, close the door, switch on the geysers, or switch on fan, lights, switch off them, or any kitchen appliances or home appliances like refrigerator, air conditioners, microwave oven, all these things can be controlled through a single mobile phone. So that makes your home automated. And then you have smart cities also being developed. smart cities plans have been started by different countries all over the globe, where all the whole city electronic equipments or whatever it is, they are being controlled by a single application. Okay, so I was talking about IP address previously, right? So when a particular thing, even a stone can be made an IoT if the stone is provided with the IP address, right? So anything in this world can be provided with internet or network by giving an IP address to that particular object. Okay. So with respect to that, I can also make that particular thing as IoT device. Okay. So first let us know what is IP address first. Okay. We need to know what is IP address. So IP is generally called as an internet protocol. It is an internet protocol. It is an address that is being allotted for a different devices. Okay, a numerical label. The address is in the form of numerical label assigned to each device is connected to a computer network that uses internet protocol for the communication. Whichever devices needs internet protocol for communication, it provides IP address. That is a it is a unique address which is in the form of octets. When you say octets, we need to know few things about what is an octet. Let's do classifications of IP address first. Okay, there is actually IPv4 and IPv6 available. IPv6 is not actually in use currently. As of now, we are using IPv4. There is maybe after a few years, IPv6 also will be implemented, and we'll be able to use IPv6. So let's talk about Internet Protocol version 4, IPv4. Okay, so IPv4 is a 32-bit address. Okay, the address size is a 32-bit. So when you say 32-bit, it's like 2 power 8 plus 2 power 8 plus 2 power 8 plus 2 power 8. There are 4 different octets present in a single address. You can see in the second paragraph, IPv4 is divided into 8 octets, 8-bit octets. So there are 4 8-bit octets available. If you see the example here, that is 180.124.09.16. That means there are 4 different partitions, each are 8-bit octet. Okay, so 8-bit octet says it is 2 power 8 bits available. So where you have the first octet, let's say 180, 180 can be replaced by any number from 0 to 255 because 2 power 8 is 256. So the least IP address number that I can extract is 0.0.0.0, and the highest IP address that I can extract is 255.255.255.255. That is the maximum IP address value that can be assigned, and the least IP address is 0.0.0.0. Okay, so since I told it is a octet, 2 power 8 is nothing but 256. Since it is reading from 0 to 255 is the limit that each octet can get, the value that each octet can get. Okay, so I'll repeat, IP address is a 32-bit address which has 4 different octets in its address. Okay, each octet can be assigned with 0 to 255 any number. So since every device will be having different IP addresses, so one of the example of IP address that I have provided here is 180.124.09.16. Okay, this is a format how an IP address is being assigned. All right. Usually, IP address are recognized in 2 different parts. One is net ID and host ID. Right. So now you can see how net ID and host IDs are given. So they are classified into Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, and Class C IP addresses. Okay. If the first octet ranges from 0 to 126, then that particular IP address is known as Class A IP address. If the first octet ranges from 128 to 191, then it is classified into class B, and same class C has 192 to 223, and class D has 224 to 239, and class E has 240 to 255. Okay, but in these ranges I'm missing with 127. If you just see here, class A is of 0 to 126 and class B is of 128 to 191. So 127 is missing. 127 uh, update number is reserved for research purposes, so that is why we don't use 127 in any of applications. Okay, so how are these classifications with respect to applications? Class A, Class B, Class C are used for commercial applications, like building a normal application. Students, when there is any students experimentations happening or lab experiments happening or just normal programming happening, that all comes under commercial purpose. Multicasting, that is class D IP addresses. Class D IP addresses is not allowed for us all to use. If you want to build a project or do some experimental applications on IoT, then we have to choose either Class A, Class B, or Class C, which is for commercial use. But multicasting is not allowed for us. This is all used for networking process, like different networks like Airtel. These all companies use multicasting IP addresses. And experimental purpose, this is all used in labs, that is research labs and so on. So they all use only class E IP addresses. They don't use class B, class A, class C, or class D applications, because there should not be any disturbance of networks that is overlapping while they are experimenting on the particular application. That is why experimental applications has their own IP range of IP addresses present, and multicasting also has their own IP addresses present. And while coming to a commercial purpose, you can choose any IP addresses among class A, class B, and class C. Right. So this classification is based on application. And when I said I was talking about IP addresses are classified into network ID and host ID, right? When network ID has the first octet and the next three octets are provided for host ID, then it comes to class A IP addresses. When network ID has first two octets and host ID has second two octets, last two octets, then it comes under class B IP address. And network ID has first three octets all allotted for network ID, and only the last octet is given for host ID, then it comes under class B IP addresses. Okay, these classifications are very simple to understand. And here you have memory allocations. How is memory allocated? Sorry. So how was 32-bit address allocated for network ID and host ID? So before assigning bits to network ID and host ID, one bit is already reserved and left over is only 31 bits. Out of 31 bits, network ID has 7 bits and host ID has 24 bits for class A IP addresses. When it comes to class B IP addresses, network ID has 14 bits, host ID has 16 bits. That means totally I have 30 bits. So the rest 2 bits, that is 10. 10 is allotted at the initial part of the address. So same way in class 3, 3 bits are allotted in the initially. So there are left over with 29 bits. Out of 29 bits, 21 is reserved for net ID, 8 are reserved for host ID. And class D and class E, if you see, uh, 4 bits are allotted initially and 5 bits are allotted initially for class D and class E respectively, and rest all are given as there is no classification on network and host ID available. Okay, so the rest 28 is given for the application by class D, and in class A, since you have 5 allotted already, so leftover is 27. So 27 is used for future use. Okay. Right. So, okay. Sorry. Yeah. In class A, I have. So, how many networks can be provided and how many hosts can be provided in class A, class B, and class C? Number of networks that can allow that class A can allow here is 129 networks, and host you can see there are number of hosts. There are almost 16 million change of networks that can be connected. When it comes to class B, there are 16,000 networks available and 65,000 change, approximately 65,000 allotted for host ID. And class C also have almost around 2 million devices provided for network, and almost it is only 254 devices provided for host. Okay, so this with respect to number of networks and number of hosts that can be connected to. And yes, since we are working with IoT application, in the previous session, I think you are already known that my embedded system, the Tiva Launchpad, whichever we have used, that have has no Wi-Fi capability. It is no, it is not, it doesn't have a capability of connecting to an internet or a network. Okay, because I don't have a Wi-Fi capability in my embedded system, that is Tiva Launchpad. Okay, so to provide a Wi-Fi capability, I need to add an additional Wi-Fi booster pack to my Tiva Launchpad. Okay, I need to connect an additional booster pack to my Tiva Launchpad in order to provide a Wi-Fi capability. Okay, so this board called CC3100 is a Wi-Fi booster pack that can be interfaced onto my Tiva Launchpad, which will give me Wi-Fi capability. Using which, using this particular Wi-Fi module, I can extract an IP address to my Tiva Launchpad, connect to the network and internet. Okay, so we'll just see further how applications can be done. Okay, first thing is I need to write a program. Okay, before this, I'll just give a write a program. How can we get an IP address to my Tiva Launchpad? Okay, how can I get IP address to my Tiva Launchpad? So what I need to do is I'll just first open Energia software. Okay, I'll just explain these parts of program here. Give me a second, please. Yes, give me a second. I'm just doing a small changes in the program. So I need to provide a network for this. So before that, let me explain the first two lines. First two lines is include SPI.h. What is SPI.h is? SPI.h is one of the embedded protocol. So during communication between two particular objects or two particular devices or two particular peripherals, we need to follow one of the embedded protocol. So we need to use a protocol through which we can be able to communicate with each other. Okay, now what we are doing is I am not alone programming or communicating with the launchpad alone. I have interfaced the CC3100 Wi-Fi booster pack in order to in order to communicate between each other. that is TIVA Launchpad and the Wi-Fi Booster Pack, there is some protocol required where both can be communicated with. So SPI is one of the embedded protocol. It is called Serial Peripheral Interface. So Serial Peripheral Interface is one of the protocol which helps us to communicate with each other. In our example, TIVA Launchpad and Wi-Fi Booster Pack is communicating with each other. Okay, so I'll provide that particular header file, that is spa.h. Okay, next I have include wi-fi.h. So wi-fi.h is since I have connected this Wi-Fi booster pack, that is CC3100, so the respective API functions is required for programming with respect to Wi-Fi booster pack, that is connecting to the network, getting the IP address, these things. To get all these things, I need particular API functions required that can support my Wi-Fi booster pack. So those API functions are present in wi-fi.h header file. Okay, wi-fi.h header file has these API functions that can support my Wi-Fi extraction or connecting to the network or getting the IP address, these things. Okay, so I have wi-fi.h header file needed. So I have added spi.h and wi-fi.h for these reasons. Okay. Now, uh, so if I need to get a IP address to a particular object, it has to be connected to a particular network. I'll use one of it. You can either use Wi-Fi network or your mobile hotspot. Okay, I have a Wi-Fi network here, so I'll use that Wi-Fi network for connecting these devices. Okay, so I'll just write that Wi-Fi name and Wi-Fi password. So if you are using a particular Wi-Fi or particular password which you don't have a password, okay, so make sure that you assign a password for that particular network, whether you are using a mobile hotspot or a Wi-Fi. Okay, if you are not using it without a password, please make sure you are enabling a password for it, then use it in the program, because for security reasons we have to provide both Wi-Fi name and the password for it. Okay, so I'll provide Wi-Fi name here. So my Wi-Fi name is 88 tech and the password is 00936903. Okay, so there's my Wi-Fi name and the password that is provided for me. So this should be always case sensitive. If E is capital and rest all are lowercase, please make sure that rest all are lowercase. So exactly how your hotspot name or Wi-Fi name is present, you have to exactly copy paste it like that. And the same way, password is also case sensitive. This I think you all know that password should be case sensitive. And then I have a predefined function called IP address, where IP address is extracted and I can uh, store that IP address in a particular variable. Okay, so to define that variable, I have this function called IP address. So what happens is at the end of this program, I will be getting my IP address for my device. Okay, once I get IP address for my device, I'll be able to store that IP address in a particular variable. I can create my own variable. I can store that IP address in that variable. So to define that IP variable, I have IP addresses, because whatever variable you create, that supports only integer values, but these are octet values. You can see here, it is not even a decimal value, it is octet values. That means you have, for example, 180.192.60.43. Okay, these are not even an integer value, or it is an decimal value, it is an octet value. To support octet values, I have a function which can be defined with a variable, that is IP address. So IP address is a function which can define a variable in which octets value will be supported to store. So IP address is a function which has declared a variable called IP. So this IP is a variable which supports octet values. Okay, so you cannot directly provide int IP or any character variable IP and store this octet values. so it won't support those type of values. So I have a function called IP address. Okay, that is the reason I have a function called IP address which support octet values in the particular variable. Then I have void setup. You know that void setup is a place where you do initial configurations. So fixed configuration where you no need to change the operation. Those configurations will be provided inside void setup. So we'll see what are the void setup configurations that I have to do. Serial dot begin. So serial dot begin is a UART communication. So using which the communication can happen. Okay. So in order to communicate with my TIVA launchpad and my serial monitor that are present, you can see here there is a serial monitor present. Okay, so you can see here. I think you can see a serial monitor present. That means whatever data that is being received by the TIVA launchpad, if user have to read that data can be directly printed on my serial monitor, using which we can see the data that is printed. Okay. So usually UART can be run with different baud rates. Why is baud rate required actually is, if suppose my communication speed is not equal to your receiving speed, then the data is lost. Okay. If I'm speaking very fast and you are not able to grasp those many amount of data, then obviously data loss happens in that way. So I have to understand that this is your receiving pace, and if I also talk with that particular pace itself, you will be able to understand completely whatever I'm talking. Okay, so 9600 is one of the baud rate I have said. That means I'm sending the data with 9600 symbols per second, and you are also receiving the data with same 9600 symbols per second. Okay, that if I have 9600 symbols per second, and you have 4800 symbols per second, then obviously half of the data is completely wasted, right? So that is why make sure the receiver and the transmitter both has the same baud rate that should maintain. Okay, so 9600 I will be maintaining in the TIVA launchpad base, and same way in the serial monitor also. If you just see in serial monitor also, I have an option of setting the baud rate. So there, whatever the programmer has written 9600, that particular baud rate I can choose it once I go to the serial monitor. Okay, so then I have serial dot print. So whatever I write in serial dot print, that is just for my acknowledgement in my serial monitor. So in my serial monitor, if I want to know this process is happening at this point, so at that point of line where the CPU is executing, you can just print telling whatever data that acknowledges you. So I need to know that whether what is happening at this point now. So at this point, the network is actually trying to connect. The device is actually trying to connect to the network. So what is the network that I am provided here? That is Edgate Tech. Edgate is a Wi-Fi network that is provided. So my device will actually try to connect to that particular network. So attempting to connect to the network. This I have written so that it will print it on my serial monitor. Okay. Next is serial println. So what is serial println? It tells me actually what network it is actually trying to connect. So SSID is the network that is actually trying to connect. What is SSID? So I have created a character variable called SSID in which the network which I have to connect, that is present. So if I provide SSID here, so the content present inside the SSID, that is Edgate Tech, that network it tries to communicate with. Okay, tries to connect with. Okay. So this serial dot print is all for my acknowledgement that I have written. But technically, how actually my TIVA launchpad tries to connect to the network is, there is a function called Wi-Fi dot begin. There is a function called Wi-Fi dot begin. Using this particular Wi-Fi, the device actually tries to connect to the network. Using Wi-Fi dot begin, the device actually tries to connect to the network. Device is nothing but my TIVA launchpad. Network is nothing but Edgate Tech. That means TIVA launchpad is trying to connect to the network Edgate Tech. Okay, so using this function Wi-Fi dot begin. So to connect to that particular network, what are the two necessary resource required is, One is SSID name, Wi-Fi password, Wi-Fi name and Wi-Fi password. These are the two resources that our device needs to connect to that particular network. If I want to connect to the particular network that is Wi-Fi EdGetTech, I need to know the name EdGetTech and its password. Okay, so that is why I've written SSID and password. What is SSID and password? SSID is nothing but a network name. Password is nothing but network's password. Right. I think till here you have no questions. The program is going easy. Then next I'll check some condition. I have given as the network, the device is trying to connect to the network. Now I need to know that whether network is connected or no. So I need to check the status of the network connection. To check the status of the network connection, I have an API called Wi-Fi dot status. Wi-Fi dot status is an API where it actually checks the status of my device, whether it is connected to the network or it is not connected to the network. To check, I have Wi-Fi dot status. I'm checking the condition for Wi-Fi dot status not equal to WL underscore connected. What do you mean by WL underscore connected is wireless LAN. Okay, if it is not connected to wireless LAN, that is the network, that is the Wi-Fi network. So what if Wi-Fi dot status is not connected to Wi-Fi network? That means I'm not checking directly with connected. I'm just checking what if the Wi-Fi is not connected to the device. Okay. So what happens is I'll go inside the loop, serial print dot. That means until the Wi-Fi is connected to the launch pad, it keeps printing me dots for every 300 milliseconds. I hope you're getting the program. So I need to check in the other case. What if I don't get connected to the network? How will I get to know? Right? So how will I get to know if the network is not connected? Is it keeps printing me dots if the network is not still connected. Until the network is connected, it keeps printing me dots only. Okay. Then what if my network is connected? If my network is connected, it will come out of the loop. Okay, it will just print me in my serial monitor telling that you are connected to the network. Okay, if it is not connected, it will keep printing me dots. If it is connected, it will come out of the dot loop and print me you are connected to the network. This much it will print me. Okay, by here we'll get to know whether the device is connected to the network or it is not connected to the network. Okay, any questions? So I think someone was trying to talk. Is there any questions? Okay, all right. So once after I get to know the Wi-Fi is connected to the launch pad, next thing I need to know is I need to get the IP address from that particular device. Okay. So network is connected. So obviously I should have some IP address for that network, right? So to get the IP address, how will I know? So I'm comparing with the same type how I did this. I'm doing here also. While Wi-Fi dot local IP. Local IP is a function used to get the IP address. It is a function where you will get the IP address through this Wi-Fi dot local IP. So I'm comparing Wi-Fi dot local IP equal to inadder underscore none. What do you mean by inadder underscore none is input address in ADDR is nothing but input address underscore none. If input address is underscore none, that means it represents 0.0.0.0. Input address is none. That means 0.0.0.0. That means there is no address provided till now. So what if there is no address provided till now? Same logic apply. So keep printing me dots until the IP address is provided. Keep printing me dots for every 300 milliseconds until the address is provided. Simple, right? So what I'll do is I'm checking condition for Wi-Fi dot local IP equal to in address none. If it is satisfying with in address none, that means it should keep printing me dots. If it is not satisfying with in 0.0.0.0, that means there is some address that is provided to the network. So come out of the loop immediately. IP equal to local IP. So whatever address that is presented by Wi-Fi.local IP, just copy it to IP. What is IP here? IP is nothing but the variable that I've created to store the IP address, right? So the variable that I've created to store the IP address, the IP address, whatever Wi-Fi.local IP is providing, that I'll directly copy it into IP. Okay. So now IP variable has the IP address which I want. Okay. So I need to print the IP address. I want to print the IP address in the serial monitor. How will I print? Serial.println IP. So whatever the data that is present inside IP, that will be printed in my serial monitor. Okay. So this much is the program. So please let me know if you have any questions to ask in the program. So are you feeling it easy? Easy. So I hope the program is easy, right? So we'll just see how to extract this IP address from my TiVo Launchpad. Let me just connect my TiVo Launchpad. So I've connected it. So let me just check if the port is connected. I'm just checking the Launchpad which I've connected is correct. So just compile the program and check if there are any errors. Okay. So if there are no errors, I can just upload the program into the Launchpad. So then extract the IP address for it. So let me open the serial monitor and check whether the IP address is obtained. See here. So first what I got is, I hope you are able to see the screen, right? Completely. So are
Yes,
you
sir.
able to see the serial monitor? Right. Okay. So you can see here, first it is printed me telling attempting to connect to the network named Edgate Tech. How did this Edgate Tech come here is, if you just scroll down, I've just written attempting to connect to the network named colon. So, but in the next line, serial print SSID output. So what do you mean by SSID is the content present in SSID. What is the content present in SSID? Edgate Tech. So that is how we got this Edgate Tech here. Okay. So once after that, it took some time to connect to the network. So it just printed me two dots. After that, it printed me telling you are connected to the network. You can see here, it will keep printing me. Once it is connected, it will print me telling you are connected to the network. So once after that, it took hardly 300 milliseconds of time. So 300 milliseconds it took, and immediately IP address is printed. So how did IP address colon come? So here, if you just see down last but the previous line, serial dot print IP address colon. So there is a IP address colon key, and IP is nothing but a variable that IP address is present. So immediately whatever the data that IP address is present, it is printed on the serial monitor. So this is how you'll extract your IP address first. Okay. So if you're clear with it, we'll just go to a application where IoT can be implemented. Okay. So yes, let me just open the BPT. Just give me a minute so that I'll keep my programs also ready. So yes, what is a Blink application? Okay, when I was talking about the introduction of IoT, I just spoke about IoT cloud. So what do you mean by IoT cloud is? IoT cloud is one of the platform where data exchange can happen. Correct. So when two devices needs to communicate with each other, the data is being stored in a particular virtual memory space. Virtual memory space in the sense I don't have any physical space to store that memory or keep that memory. It is an IoT cloud which is called an virtual memory space which is present in the atmosphere. Okay, so when that particular device wants to communicate with the other device, it has to access that virtual memory space which is present in the atmosphere, extract the data, whichever need to be sent to the other data, it sends the data. Okay, so it is a virtual memory space that is present in the atmosphere. Okay, so that virtual memory space you cannot create by yourself. There are particular vendors, they provide that IoT cloud or the IoT memory space. Okay, so you would have seen many IoT platforms which provide IoT cloud, that is AWS. You would have seen AWS, that is an IoT cloud provided by Amazon. There is Google Cloud available. Same way, I'm using IoT cloud called Blink. Blink is an application using which I can also create the project whatever I'm working on, as well as I can also create virtual memory space using it. Okay, I can create virtual memory space using it also. All right. Now, now let me just show you how a Blink application works and so on. First resource that Blink application require. First thing a Blink application need is a smartphone where you can install this Blink application into your smartphone. So when I say smartphone, it supports both Android smartphones and iOS smartphone. The condition is Android needs to be at least a version 4.2 or above. Okay, and same way iOS also should be a minimum version of 9, iOS version 9 or above. Okay, it does not work in any Windows phones, or you cannot install it in laptops and so on. It should be a smartphone, either an Android or an iOS. Okay, the second resource that is required is our hardware. So in our application, I'm using a hardware of Tiva Launchpad and that CC3100. Okay. Apart from that, you can use many other hardware apart from TI Launchpads. You have TI tools. You can also use ESP modules like Node MCUs and ESP32 and ESP8266 and so on. And you can also use Arduino hardware, Raspberry Pi, and particle boards, which is implemented for IoT applications. Okay. Second one is hardware. Okay. Third one is internet connection. Make sure the hardware which you are using should have internet capability or Wi-Fi capability. If not, please make sure the additional module is provided for that and give a Wi-Fi capability. Just like what I did for my Tiva Launchpad. I didn't have a Wi-Fi capability, so I used 3CC3100 Wi-Fi booster pack, which provides Wi-Fi capability to my Launchpad. Okay, so when you are providing a Wi-Fi internet connection, it can be in any means. It can either be in Wi-Fi, it can be in Ethernet, cellular, serial, USB, or Bluetooth. Any of these means you can provide internet for the particular hardware. And when I say internet connection, it is not only for the hardware that should be provided, even for your smartphone, the internet connection should be provided, but not necessary same internet connection. Just like how I did, right? I used the Edgate Tech network, which was connected for my laptop as well as for my Launchpad, right? So it is not necessary to be in the same network. Make sure your smartphone also has an internet connection and your hardware also has an internet connection. It need not be the same network, it is connected. Okay. So these are the three resources required before implementing Blink application. So now let's see how the Blink application is actually working. So you have a Blink smartphone where Blink application is present. So through Blink application, you are being able to control the external devices, right? Let's suppose I have connected these lights here. Okay, in this room I have a lights. You those lights can be controlled by my smartphone. Smartphone in the sense using my Blink application. Okay, so this side there is a Blink application, and other side you have I have an example of Arduino Raspberry Pi present here. Instead of that, I can also connect a Tiva launchpad, that is TI tools. Okay, so make sure the TI tool is provided with an internet access of your choice, either Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or anything else. Okay, along with that, make sure Blink libraries also is being provided in that software. So while programming, make sure Blink libraries has been attached. Same way, Wi-Fi.h header files has been created for connecting to the IP address, right? So I've added Wi-Fi.h, that is which has all my Wi-Fi libraries. Same way, when I'm connecting a particular object with Blink application, make sure Blink header files has been installed and stored in the software's library files. So I'm using an Energia software. So Energia software's library files is present. So within that libraries, I need to add Blink header files also. Okay, Blink header files also is to be added in order to program for Blink. Okay, and in between I have a Blink server. Blink server is nothing but a Blink IoT cloud where data is being stored and retrieved between smartphone and the hardware device. Okay, so this is how the communication happens. Let's say I'm switching on the light through my Blink application. So when I press switch on, that switch on data will be sent to the Blink server. Okay, and the hardware collects the data from the Blink server. That means it is getting to know that the smartphone is actually telling me to on my light. Okay, so my hardware, what it will do, immediately on my light using that external devices and something. Okay, same way, if I just ask it to switch off using my mobile app, if the data is sent to the Blink server, and through the Blink server, the IoT hardware is being received with that particular data, and a particular respective action is being performed. That means lights are turned off. Okay. So once you create a Blink application, you need to. I'll teach you how to create a program or a project using a Blink application. If you have a smartphones, I'll just tell you how to install it. You can just go for a Google Play Store or Apple Store. You can just type something called BLYNK Blink application. So you will get something called Blink application. You just need to install it, log in through your regular Gmail ID. Okay, you can log in through your Gmail ID. Once after that, you will get a screen such as this to create a new project and so on. So once you click on new project, you will get an option of writing the name of your project, selecting the board which you're using, and type of network that you're connecting to. So I've just created a project name as Blink. Please give me a second. Yes, so I can give a name for my project. I've given a name for my project as Blink here. Okay, then I have Tiva TI Tiva connected. So if I just click on this arrow mark, I have different boards to select. So my option is TI Tiva connected. That is my Tiva Launchpad connection. Okay, and then I have connection type. How is internet being connected to your device? Through Wi-Fi or hotspot, whatever it may be. Okay, so I'll just select Wi-Fi. Then after that, I have an option of create. So I'll just click on create. The theme is nothing but you can either use dark theme or light theme. It's up to you. Once after all these configurations, I'll just click on create. So once I click on create, I'll get a plain uh, project space where I can do my project implementation. Correct. So I can do my project implementation in this particular space. Okay. Before that, we'll just know what are the switches or widgets that are present here. Okay. So here you have this icon where you can create new project, delete a project. Everything can be done by clicking this particular part. And here you have a settings option. Settings options, you can edit your project here. You can edit your project by doing some changes, or if you want to delete your project, you can do it through this settings option. And then you have a plus option here. This is nothing but if you want to add any widgets onto your project. So let's suppose if I click on that plus symbol, I'll get widget box open. Okay, you will have buttons, style buttons, sliders, timers, joysticks, many options you have. So using these, that means switches, many widgets that is useful for the project implementation are present in this widget box. And if you just see in this part, it is written as 700 charge. Usually if you are a new user, Blink provides 2000 charge for free. That means up to 2000 charge you can use any number of widgets. You can see here button, if you see, it costs 200 charge. Style button costs 300 charge. Slider costs 200. Vertical slider costs 200. Timer costs 200. So same way, if you are using multiple widgets, make sure it is within 2000 charge. Okay. If suppose you wanted to implement a bigger project and you want higher charge available for you, then you can just click on add and you can buy charge from Blink application. That means you need to pay for extra charges, and you need to buy how much charge you wanted to. For example, you wanted to build a home appliances, have many objects to be controlled, right? In that case, you can buy extra charge from the Blink by clicking on add, and you can start working on how many applications you wanted to do in a single project. Okay, so I want only a single button. What I'll do is, using a single button, I have an onboard LED present in my table launchpad. Okay, I have an onboard LED present in table launchpad. That particular LED should be operated through my Blink application wirelessly. Okay, instead of that LED, I can also connect to my home lights, fans, and so on. Okay, because we don't have that sufficient time so that I can connect to home lights or fans. So I've just chosen the onboard LED itself. So using my Blink application, I should be able to control that onboard LED. Okay, so I have selected this button. So using this virtual button, I'll be able to control that onboard LED. So this button is of 200 charge. So once I click on this button, that button is present in my project area now. Okay, it is present in my project area. So I can't
Krishna sir, we are not. You are not audible. Krishna sir. Yeah, there is some network issue from Edgate side, so please be patient. We will reconnect it within 2 minutes. So.
Sorry, sir. I think there was a small network issue. I just connected right now. So I'll just continue with the explanation. Please give me a second. Right. I was just talking about the virtual button. So using this additional symbol, I can select one button, right? So once I tap on that button, I can configure the button as I want. Okay. So once I in this button, if I just single tap on this button, I'll get button settings open. So I can give my name to my button, and I can configure the virtual button as V0. So usually if you just select on these, you have virtual buttons coming from V0 to V127. That means there are totally 127 virtual pins allotted to work in a single project area. Okay, in a single project area, you can use up to V0 to V127. That means 128 virtual pins you can use it. Okay. So since I am only using with one virtual button, that means I just need that one button to on and off my LED, onboard LED. Okay, I'll use V0, and using this, I'll on and off the LEDs. Okay, and make your button work as a push button or a switch button. It is up to you. Push button is like a calling bell. Okay, until you press that button, it will give me on state. If you release the button, if it will give me the off state. But switch is not like push case. It is like once you tap, it will be on state. Second time you tap, it will be off state. Again, third time you tap, it will be on state. Every alternative tap will be on and off state respectively. Okay. So once after you do these settings, I'll click on this arrow mark, the previous to go back. So once after that, your button is ready to operate now. Okay. Now we'll just keep this phone aside. Do the programming part now. So how do I do the programming part is, I have my program ready with me. So let me just open it. See here, as include SPI.h and Wi-Fi.h, we have already discussed. SPI.h is to communicate between the T1 Launchpad and the Wi-Fi booster pack, and Wi-Fi.h is to support all the API functions related to Wi-Fi connectivity. Those are all present in Wi-Fi header files. So I'll just use Wi-Fi.h included. All right. Please do let me know if any network issues happening from my side, so I can just check onto it. Then I have.
So in between, there is some question from a participant side.
Yes, sir. Please, I'll just check on the chat box.
Yes, any question from participants?
You can please ask me if you have any queries related to the program which I'm teaching.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can we implement technology also in this software, sir?
You can implement any technology, like if you want to connect your lights, fans, refrigerators, if you want to close your doors and open your doors, if you, for example, if you want to make a complete home automation, you can do through this. But the question is that 2000 charge enough for it? If you feel if the 2000 charge is not enough, you can buy it from the Blink application. Just let me share the screen and tell you how can you do that. So you have a widget box here, right? So they'll give you
Yes.
2000 charge for free. If that 2000 charge is not enough to interface all your belongings or home appliances to it, you can just click on this ad where you can buy more charges from the Blink server. So by paying it, you can buy more charges. Then you can just interface as many as appliances and electrical devices through from your home. Okay.
Sir, wireless modules are available in this?
Yeah, wireless module is available. Like what how I used for CC3100, right? That is one of the wireless module using which I can provide IP address for different objects that I want to connect to, and I can data exchange easily through that particular thing.
If I want to show Bluetooth Zigbee Wi-Fi in this case,
For Zigbee Wi-Fi, you have a different type. So I in this part, so I'm just giving it to blue Wi-Fi application, right? You can just click
what,
on this and you have Bluetooth connectivity. So once you connect to Bluetooth connectivity, then you can do that particular application.
okay.
So it
Thank you,
depends
sir.
upon what connection type you want to do. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I hope the doubt is clarified.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there are a few questions in the chat box also.
Uh, 1 second, sir. Let me just check.
One question is from Sizu, and the other question is from Bhavesh.
I will just check now, sir.
ये अभी पूछा ना पड़ेगा.
So interoperability. What kind of issues? Can you give me examples of what kind of issues are you trying to tell me?
Sizu, can you unmute yourself?
Sir, is it audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
Sizu.
you're audible.
Yeah. Sir, actually, I just wanted to know whether means when different devices are being connected.
Okay.
So, suppose if we are using for industries and all, okay. So, for different devices for different makes, will there be any interoperability issues?
No.
Related to-
It's like as I told you, you can connect any object to your devices, but make sure you have provided an IP address to that particular device. Like you can operate electrically however you want. Like how I gave an example of light, right? I can operate my ceiling fans through my Blink app. How can I do it? Is I can just give an IP address to the ceiling fans. I can make sure that using a virtual pin like V0, V1, V2, I'll be electrically operating that fan. So by operating it electrically, I can be able to control that particular device. That means that whole device will be in control with Blink application now. So same way, it doesn't matter the industrial devices that you are using or any home appliances you're using, you can be able to control it electrically by operating high or low voltages, or you can also in analog form also you can be able to control that particular device, external device. Okay.
So, sir, means for every device we should be having a separate IP address, right?
Yes, you need to have an IP address which can be able to control by the Blink application.
Okay. So, for any addition or subtraction, there will be means that much number of this thing IP addresses should be there.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Sir, sir, good morning, sir. Here Ravi Rai, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, this Blink application can I use in smart agriculture?
Sure, you can use it as this actually what are the questions that is asked been asked as same solution is for both. Like as I told you, any devices or any non-living can be thing can be provided with IP address, and using that IP address that is provided with the non-living thing, you can easily be communicated with this Blink server. Okay,
Okay, sir.
it's it
So,
is not.
we can prepare the data set by using this particular software,
Sure, you can do it.
real-time database, sir.
Yeah, you can do it. It's all collecting the data and providing the data is the job of this IoT application. Apart from that, rest all is embedded application, right? Whatever you're telling, the collecting the data and providing that particular, these all comes under embedded application. Correct. Collecting data through internet is the main thing in IoT. Rest all is embedded application itself. Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. So any more doubts? Can we make our own app for home appliances?
So there is a Bhavesh, Mr. Bhavesh.
So actually, you can create your own apps, but make sure you are buying some IoT server or IoT cloud that is from a third party. You cannot make your own IoT cloud or IoT server. Okay, that particular thing has to be taken or bought from some other vendors. Then make sure you can be able to do it up after that. Okay. So I think,
Sir, I have one query.
yeah.
Sir, there is already scarcity of this IPv4 addresses. So
Okay.
there is any solution for IPv6 that how we can in the coding how we can include IPv6?
Yes, actually, as of now, you don't. The IPv4 is also a large number of IP addresses provided. Okay, for example, I am doing a small application here, right? So that IP address is allotted for me until I do that application. Once I come out of that application and don't use that project application, that IP address will be disabled for my devices and being ever enabled for other devices. So as of now, we are not feeling any difficulty in using this amount of IP addresses. Yeah, in future there is obviously getting a issue because there will be hundreds and thousands of billions of products that will be implemented with IoT. Sure, in few years there will be implementation of IPv6. IPv6 is very large compared to IPv4, and surely that will be useful for next 50 or 100 years. Okay, so as of now, IPv4 is manageable. All right.
Okay, sir.
So I think I can just continue. Yeah, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question from my side. Anjula Tayar.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sir, what is the cost of your board and app?
So the embedded, the T1 Launchpad, it is costing around 2 to 3,000, I guess. I'm not sure about the exact price. Sorry. So the marketing team would be knowing better than us. So that would be around 2,000 to 3,000, I guess. And the Wi-Fi booster pack also can cost around $1,000, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I think you will. I'll just let the marketing team discuss about that and let you know the exact.
Just approximate cost, sir. Yes.
I'll just let Manish sir get to know about these things. I'll just let him know about these things, and he'll be able to share this data. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sorry, I just don't know about the cost wise.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Sir, it was a great session, sir. It's a very, very valuable session.
Okay. I still actually I just need to implement few more things. I just finished off. I just didn't finish the session. So if you have any queries, please let me know, or I'll continue the session.
Krishna sir, please continue.
Sure. So I'll just get back to the programming part. Yes, I think you're able to view the screen. Just expand so that the letters are visible. Right. And same like SPI.h and Wi-Fi.h, we also have for Blink libraries. I told you while explaining the diagram of Blink, the process how Blink is working, I just mentioned Blink libraries in that, right? So this is my Blink library where all my Blink functions and APIs are being supported. Okay, so I have to add one more additional header files here, that is Blink Simple Energia Wi-Fi.h. This is my Blink library I've added here, and so these are the comment section. So these two lines you already know. This is my Wi-Fi name, and this is my Wi-Fi password. This is a older program, so I have a data of older networks that I have been worked on, and I have character auth. Auth is nothing but authentication token. Okay, what do you mean by authentication token here is, in my PPT, I just told you how to create a new project, right? Once I have successfully created a new project, and before implementing those widgets, I would have log in through my Gmail address while installing the app, Blink application. Okay, whatever email address I have login through to that particular email address, I would have got some authentication token. Okay, I would have got some authentication token. Now the question is, why is that authentication token required? So authentication token is nothing but a unique ID or a token that makes only me the authorized person who will be able to control the devices that I'm connecting to. For example, I've connected lights, fans, doors, refrigerators, air conditioners, everything. Okay. So if I use this authentication token in my program, which means I am the only person who is being able to control all these devices that are connected to. Okay, I have connected all these objects, right? For example, I'm telling you, if I'm done a home appliances application, so using this authentication token, the programmer will be the only person who will be able to access the devices or home appliances around me. Okay, so this particular authentication token cannot be used for any other programming. It can be used for only once, and only this program, this authentication token will be used. Okay, this makes the person the only authorized person who will be able to access the devices. Okay, so these network ID and network password makes the things connected and being operated individually. But if only one person should be able to access these devices, that is possible only with this authentication token. Using this authentication token, it will make sure that only I'll be able to operate these devices. All right. Then coming to void setup, we'll just see what are the few configurations that are required. So this is for UART communication. In order to see the data in my serial monitor, I use serial.begin. Okay, and pin mode is, I told you I'll be configuring my onboard LED, right? I have red LED, green LED, and blue LED on my T1 launchpad. I'll configure one of the LED, that is red LED. So I configured for red LED output and blink.begin. In the previous program, while extracting the IP address, we saw Wi-Fi.begin. Correct? Wi-Fi.begin is to connect to the network. And the parameters required for Wi-Fi.begin is SSID and password. Okay, but here we are actually connecting to the Blink application directly. Okay, so blink.begin. Blink.begin requires 3 parameters instead. So SSID and password is common, and one more variable, one more data is required, that is authentication token. So where is authentication token present? In a variable called auth. In a character variable called auth, the authentication token is pasted here. So authentication token is required, SSID is required, and password is also required. Okay. So coming to the next part, these are all commented section just for understanding purpose. Okay, then we have blink underscore write v0. What do you mean by blink underscore write by v0 is, can anyone guess what is this v0 of, where this v0 came from? Can anyone guess?
So the widget.
Sir,
Yes.
I think LED is off from low.
Actually, this V0 is nothing but the widget we created in the Blink application. We selected a button and we configured the button as V0, right? We configured the button as V0. So this V0 is nothing but the widget, that is the virtual button that I have named it as. So until I did the application part, that button is not configured to my red LED until now. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually configuring that virtual button to this red LED on my, that is present in my Tiva Launchpad. Okay, that virtual button V0 will be able to control the red LED that is present in Tiva Launchpad once I physically configure it. So that physical configurations, I'll be doing it in further lines now. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm writing values onto that V0 pin. Correct. So for that I have blink underscore write. That means I'm writing values onto that V0 pin. Okay. So under this function, I have int a. I have configured int a variable. So what I'll do is I have a function called param.asInt. What is this param.asInt? This is very important to understand while programming Blink application. Okay, param.int as int is nothing but parameter as integer. Simple. param dot as int is nothing but parameter which will act as an integer. Which is a parameter and which is an integer here? V0 is a parameter, A is an integer. Okay. So in my Blink application, if I click on that virtual button, V0 is taken as 1. Okay. Here, as per this function parameter as integer, when V0 is 1, A also is read as 1 because parameter is as integer. Okay. Whatever parameter gets the value, that is given to the integer also. When V0 is pressed in my phone, V0 is taken as 1 value and integer A is also 1. Okay. So what happens? Let's suppose virtually I have clicked on the button, V0 is read as 1. So integer also is read as 1. Okay. That means V0, when V0, just type it here somewhere. When V0 is equal to 0, then A is 0. Okay. Sorry. Same way, when V0 is equal to 1, then A is equal to 1. Okay. This depends upon virtual button not pressed. Here, virtual button pressed. Okay. When it is not pressed, V0 gets 0 value and A also remains 0. When the virtual button is pressed, V0 is 1, A is also 1. Okay. Now you can see here, let's suppose V0 is 0. Okay, A is equal to 0. So digital write, red LED is 0. When red LED is 0, red LED is in off state. Let's suppose through my Blink application, I've clicked the button. So V0 gets V1 as the value. So since V1 is 0, A is equal to 1. Sorry, V1 is 1, A is equal to 1. So when A is equal to 1, here I have put A here. So red LED is A. What is A? 1. When red LED is 1, that means high. So red LED close. Okay. So the overall here, which is important, is parameter as integer. Due to this function only, virtual button is directly depending upon, this physical LED is directly depending upon the virtual button that I have created in the application. So this integer is directly dependent upon the parameter V0. Okay. So this much is the overall program. Please do let me know if you are clear with the program or if you have any doubts. So if there are no doubts, we'll just see the output. Yes. Any questions in the program? Are you feeling it easy? So if you let me know if you don't have questions, then I'll go with the output part and show you the output. I hope I don't have any network issues. I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You're perfectly audible, sir.
Yes. Thank you. So please let me know if you have doubts also. If not, I'll just go to the implementation part. Okay, I'll just check in the chat box. Yeah, I just saw that there are no doubts. So my colleague is actually joining the session and he'll be showing you the output through video format. Okay, so I think he's ready now. So please check on this. I'll just stop sharing. Now I think he'll be able to show the output. Sir, can you make Bharat as co-host, please?
Bharat is a co-host, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I'll just mute myself. He'll be showing you the output.
Okay. Sure. So I made the Bharat as a co-host.
Okay, so I hope my camera is visible. So I've already uploaded the program here for this device. So in the Blink app, I've already created a button here. So you can see it is named as V0. Okay, so I've already updated it and the program is also uploaded. So I'll just click on resume here. So whenever I click on the button here, the LED turns on. So the LED is available here. Okay, yeah. So you can see I've just clicked on button and the LED has turned on. So if I just click on off again, it turns off. So here it is displaying as off and the LED is off. So now you can see it has turned on and it is displaying on here. Okay. So this is controlling the embedded device or the IoT device with the help of Blink Cloud. So I hope the demo was visible.
Yes, I hope you guys saw the output. So do you have any doubts or problem in understanding the output? Please let me know. So hope the output is. Give me a second. Okay. Hope the output is clear. Sorry for the disturbance. Yes. Now you can just let me know if you have any queries overall session. So from the start till the Blink application, if you have any queries or problem in understanding, please do let me know. We'll be ready to clarify now.
Any query from participant side? Krishna sir, please share your email ID. So
I'll be sharing it in the chat box, sir.
okay.
Yes, it's written as krishna@edgate.in. So if you have any technical queries regarding the subject or anything, please you can just be free to mail your or post your questions onto this email ID. Okay, thank you.
There is one question in the chat box.
Yes, I'm just seeing it, sir. If that is possible. Sir, can you please unmute and clarify clearly tell me that question? I'm not getting the question actually.
Ravi
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I am asking to you, sir, because I am currently working on the smart agriculture
Okay.
system. So, but I am not unable right now for how can we prepare the data set by using the any IoT devices.
Prepare the data set in the sense.
Yes.
Can you give me examples, sir?
Like we are use any sensor like a temperature sensor and moisture sensor, soil moisture sensor. So we want prepare the real time data set by using such type of the software like Blink software.
Okay, sir. So I'll just make sure the question is right. So you just want to read that temperature sensor and other humidity sensor, whatever it is. So you just want to read it in a thing, and you need to store the value in some particular memory space. Is it right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is all your embedded applications, sir. You can either use LCD display for displaying for real time if you want at that particular time circumstances,
Yes,
or
yes, sir. Yes,
if you want to store that data separately for future use also, you can just make sure that you will get an email through it, or you can also make it as a SMS. So you can use a GSM module for that, so that your data is being continuously sent to it as an SMS format or a text format. You can use GSM module for it, sir.
yeah. Okay, sir.
Right, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Any more queries? Please be free to ask.
Nisha madam?
Yes, sir. Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, it's just a very valuable session. It's a great learning experience for all of us. So that you have introduced an IoT in an exhaustive manner, and you have explained all the applications of IoT, and we get a detailed information about the networking concepts and their subnet mask and their application in IoT devices. And you have also mentioned how to configure any IoT on the network and how to control it. And we get a detailed information about the Blink app, and have also explained the remote control procedure about how to control devices through the Blink app. So we get a lot of information from this session, sir. So it was a very learning experience for all of us, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time that you have spared time from your busy schedule for us. And I
You're
should
welcome.
thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you on behalf of me and the entire FTP team of Electronics and Telecommunication Department, sir. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome. My pleasure.
So thank you, Krishna sir.
Yes, sir. You're welcome, sir.
So dear participant, we are starting our next session at 2:30 p.m. Professor Abhishek Srivastava from IIT Indore will talk about the Web of Things. So please available and join the session at 2:25. Thank you, Krishna sir. Once again from our entire FTP team.
Yes, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you all. Thank you.